Hello, David. Hello, Frank. It's great to see you today. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks,
Hi.
Russell.
Good, good. Now, I always look forward to getting the email from the Law and Religion UK blog, which you both run. So thanks for coming to talk about it today. And I wonder if you might like to start by saying how the blog got started.
Well, it got started in a fairly half-baked way in 2012 when I realized that blogging was beginning to become a thing and no one was doing any sort of serious across-the-board blogging on law and religion. There was Neil Anderson, who was something of a pioneer in this, but he tended to blog particularly from the perspective of Roman Catholic canon law, which is good, but it didn't cover some of the things that I was interested in. There are various Roman Catholic canon law blogs, which are well worth looking at. There's also, of course, the daddy of them all in the States, Howard Friedman, who blogs as religion law, but inevitably he's primarily interested in US law because there's so much of it because of the First Amendment. So there seemed to be a gap. And I thought, how about having a go at filling it? And I started blogging in a fairly desultory manner as and when things occurred to me, and not at all systematically. And I was also conscious of the fact that I'd never be able to maintain it myself. So down at Cardiff, we were in the maltsters after a lecture, and I said, might anybody be interested in joining me in doing this blog? And David said,
Yes, we did, yeah. And in fact, it was after it was the very end of my course. We just had the John Lewis Memorial Lecture. And we were all relaxing in our DJs in the maltsters. And it seemed like a very good idea, putting it in context where we actually come from, because I took up ecclesiastical law when I retired, so I'm relatively new to it, only from 2010, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. But where do you take it once you've got your LLM?
Fantastic. So that's how you both joined forces, and the blog really got going. So what areas of content do you cover? Because law and religion could be interpreted in different ways, but you have quite a wide interpretation, don't you, of that phrase?
yes, we do. I think it's very, very difficult to know where to draw the line, and some of what we do really spills over into the general area of law and morality. I think by common consent, we agree to be inclusive rather than exclusive, because you never know what people might be interested in. We also cover a pretty wide range. If it's religion and human rights, it's probably me. If it's nuts and bolts Anglican canon law, it's probably David. But again, we have no hard and fast division of labour, and we kind of do it by consensus.
Yeah, and you don't always know who has written the piece. When it says published by, that's the first person that started the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean, I normally
the
start the weekly roundup, but it's very much a joint exercise.
I think a real academic would have trouble with not getting attribution, but we're beyond that.
Yes.
Well, indeed, and that's one of the problems, of course. We're both getting old, as you can see. If this thing is worth continuing, after we've shuffled off this mortal coil, it needs somebody to continue it. Unfortunately, if you're an early career academic, what you need to advance is publications in hard copy in reputable journals. I don't think, as yet, blogging carries very much weight in the formal academic community. I think life is moving on and it's becoming more important than it was. But the fact is, 10 blog posts, however carefully researched and however widely read, does not equal one article in the Law Quarterly Review. It's just the way things are. So finding people who'd be prepared to commit themselves is very, very difficult. On the other hand, we always welcome guest posts, and we get rather a lot of them.
Yeah, and this week we've had 2 from senior academics, Russell Sandberg and Rebecca Probert.
But it sounds like that's a call to members of this Ecclesiastical Law Society who might be watching this video, perhaps who are interested. You might be amenable to approaches for those who would want to get involved and assist on the blog.
Absolutely.
Well, I certainly find it really useful. I mean, you say that it is, you're right, it is absolutely a broad coverage, but I find that really helpful as a parish priest, both the things on the Anglican canon law, very practical about the day-to-day things we need to know in the parish, but the background about the constitutional and, as you say, law and morality. It's a really interesting selection. I think that any member of the society that doesn't already, or anybody interested in ecclesiastical law that doesn't already follow the blog, really should, because I think it makes a really interesting selection of topics to cover. I get the regular email that comes out, or regular emails that I subscribe. The other way, I suppose, is people can just visit the website regularly when they feel in need of a top-up and an update. How many subscribers do you have?
We've got slightly over 460 that I'm aware of who are signed up either via WordPress or to the email. However, I should say that, to the best of my knowledge, about half a dozen of them are Russian porn bots. So, because we've got no way of excluding undesirables, so probably real subscribers, we might have 400.
Right. And do you, besides the
Well,
Russian porn bots, do you have a sense of who they are and where they come from?
A lot of academics, I mean, I recognize a lot of the names and addresses, and particularly academics who are in the law and religion community generally. Some practicing lawyers, somewhat to my surprise, quite a few people who work in administration of justice and around church house and places like that, which is quite gratifying, actually. You know, if the Ministry of Justice reads the blog, we must be getting something at least slightly right. But apart from that, there are just people who are interested, which is fine. You know, it's a blog, it's open access. We're happy for anybody to pitch up.
Yes, currently we're getting about 1,000-page reads per day.
Fantastic.
Which isn't, and by the end, well, it's about 1.72 million since we started, which for a niche area is quite good, we think.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think so.
We didn't think there was so much ecclesiastical law around when we met in the maltsters. We didn't think we'd be on it day after day.
Yes, yeah. And although it's Law and Religion UK, you do have a reasonable take-up from across the world?
Yes, I mean, we do tend to keep away from American stuff, partly because Howard Friedman does it brilliantly, so why try and emulate him? And partly because, as I explained at great and boring length in an article in the Ecclesiastical Law Journal, American law and religion is so different from ours because of the First Amendment. I don't think there's any useful read across from what they do to what we do. But on the other hand, things like Canada, where the right to freedom of religion in the Canadian Charter of Rights is on very similar lines as to that in the European Convention, and Australia and New Zealand, they're common law countries. We share the same legal tradition. If something interesting crops up, why not report it? And after all, our courts do cite Aussie and New Zealand precedents as they cite ours. The other thing I should say is John Whitty reckons in a piece I saw last year that the law and religion community worldwide, or certainly in the Western world, was about 2,000 people all told. He probably knows more about this than anybody else. If that's his estimate, it's not likely to be dramatically far out. So if there are about maybe between top whack 2,000 and 3,000 people in the field worldwide. If we get 1,000 hits in a day, we can't be doing too badly. Having said that, of course, sometimes we write things and no one reads it at all, but hey, that's life.
Sure. So I'm sure there aren't many of those where not many people read them. What do you find are the topics that get the most hits, the most interest and most comments?
Well, it tends to be issue driven. We see what is going to be coming up in court reports, and then we follow that up and put a post out. So it's what is the flavour of the month. And coronavirus, surprisingly, is the top. We wouldn't have covered that. And in fact, when we did the first post, we said, well, we don't really want to do this. It's not in our area. But it's worked its way into everyone's life and into the churches. So it's been the top few posts recently.
That's right. And some of the coronavirus stuff is a million miles from what we're interested in, but it's all part of the same picture and you can't ignore it.
Absolutely, as you say, it's touching everything at the moment, and lots of live issues for day-to-day running in parishes and churches that are affected by the virus. So no, it's really good to be kept up to date on some of these things through the blog. It really is. It's a great service you do, certainly, as I say, from my point of view, in the parish, and as you say, academics and legal practitioners, I think, find it really useful. So anybody who's got this far in the video and hasn't already visited the blog should certainly do so. So in the description on YouTube, I'll put the link, or obviously people can Google it. I certainly recommend people sign up to get the emails. You don't swamp the subscribers with too much. It's always interesting and always a pleasure to receive the emails. So I really appreciate what you both do, and hope you will continue to do it for a long time to come.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really good to talk to you today. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.